Hey Everett, how's it going? Thanks for sending in this new version. Let's check it out.
I noticed you were wearing a hat, and that's pretty cool. Like I don't see a lot of like girls wearing hats, you know.
Awesome. I think the acting's working a lot better, and I think it's I only have a smooth, a smooth. I only have a few more kind of acting-y notes, and then it's just kind of technical things. Really polish it up and try and get it to kind of a really nice stage for presentation. So let's talk about the acting notes first. And there's one slightly bigger one, and then the rest of them are pretty easy to just layer on top of what you got. So let's talk about the bigger one. So this bit here, right? I like all of this stuff. It's got this nice breathe
I
in.
noticed you were wearing a hat, and I noticed you were wearing a hat,
And you do, I noticed you were going back and then wearing a hat, you go forward. And for me, I think to make the story work, what you need is the character is standing there like you've got. He's nervous. I love all this extra fiddly fidgeting you've added in the hands. But he has this breathe in. And then he recoils to start speaking. And I think that is anti what you want for the acting in this moment. The acting in this moment is he's finally brought up the courage to step into this conversation and start speaking. So for me, instead of saying...
I noticed you were wearing a hat, and
instead of stepping in on hat, you step in on... I noticed you were wearing a hat. That way, we have our composure, we have our nervous. I'm looking at the conversation. I'm like, okay, I noticed it, and then he steps into it instead of like coming out of it and then stepping into it. You've built up all this courage, and then you're stepping into the conversation to start the conversation, right? So I think you're kind of fighting your own acting, and the intention will come across a lot better if you removed.
I noticed you were wearing
this. I noticed you were wearing a moment. And you went straight into the... I noticed you weren't at the step in. So it's just in the body, you know, you can keep your facial animation. You can just take out some of the keys in the middle from, you know, here to here and kind of like move some of this body motion forward. I'm sure you can do some stuff to kind of get it working. And then maybe the hat can just be like a... I noticed you're wearing a hat. It could just be in the head. So you just move your body motion from that accent forward. So it ties in with the end of the exhale, and then you can add in just a little bit of texture for that extra accent instead of having it as two separate clear beats. Cool. So that's the biggest, hardest thing to change. The rest of it's going to be smaller. So there's a bit here.
that's pretty cool. Like I don't see a lot of like girls.
So I thought what might work is when he says,
that's pretty cool. Like,
and that's pretty cool. He's trying to like convince himself that what he's saying isn't dorky and what he's saying is cool. He obviously is saying cool as well. So another thing you can do to help with that is to add like and that's pretty cool, you know, like a nod, a bit of texture, breaks up the motion a little bit more. The thought I had for this is you lead the nod before the action as well, because he has the thought in his head. His thought is like, yeah, this is fine, this is cool, and he's convincing himself of that by nodding, and then he's saying it, right? So it's
that's pretty cool.
And that's pretty cool. So you lead the nod during the that's pretty cool. It just gives it this nice, you see the internal, and when he's like that's and he looks down, you start the nod, that's pretty cool, and then you continue it through the that's pretty cool, and then you can end it, and that's when he realizes, that's when he starts to lose confidence again, right? It's just like a nice bit of textury acting layered on top of what you've already got. When I say layered, I don't necessarily mean animation layers as a technical term. I mean layered as in additive motion, not necessarily the technical term of animation layers in Maya, if that makes sense to you. Cool.
Like, I don't see a lot of like girls.
And the last thing, well, there's probably some more acting notes, right? Okay, here you go.
Cool. Like I don't see a lot of like girls.
Maybe you do like a slight lean forward here for see a lot of like, and then you do girls, you do lean forward again. I was wondering if it was like, I don't see a lot of like girls. Maybe instead of going, I don't see a lot of like girls, where you're doing the same action twice, you do a small version and then a bigger version. Maybe instead you do, I don't see a lot of like, you go back with the, I don't see a lot of accent in the body, and then you go forward for the girls, just for contrast and for breaking it up a little bit so it isn't, I don't see a lot of like girls where it's the same action twice in a row. You have this nice breakup of, I don't see a lot of like girls, so you do back and then forward. I think that will help break up the action a little bit more. So that would be my note on that bit. which was here. And then the last kind of acting note, I think I've got one more that I didn't actually write on here, which I should have. We'll get to that in a second. So I think you just missing a very slight eye dart before the widening of the eyes. The way I always like to think about it is, you have the fort, you show that fort change in with an eye dart, then you show the reaction to the fort, which is the expression change, and then the expression change leads out to the whole body. So it's leading from the eye change to the whole eye mask and face changing to the whole body changing. So it's like those. That's the step by step. Like the brain is connected to the eyes, and then the eyes, we see the thought process first, which is a little eye dart. Then the whole eye mask opens, so we see it in the whole expression of the face, and then we see it in the body. That's kind of like the stages. So you're just missing. It's as simple as adding like a small eye dart around here. When he's like,
I like girls.
Maybe I'm doing it slightly too early with the drawing I did there. He's like girls, and then you have. I'm doing it way too big. Just a slight eye dart, little shift, bump, bump, little shift over. And then you have the widening, and then you have the thing. And I think it just gives it a little bit cleaner acting, a little bit clearer. So hopefully that's clear. So the one other more acting-y thought I had before we get into some of the technical things is I think...
You're wearing a hat, and that's pretty cool. Like, I don't see a lot of, like...
When he does, like, and that's pretty cool. I feel like we're doing this a lot, where we just have the cup hand kind of just following for a whole beat. You have it... This part where you go... hat, and you lead with the shoulder and the cup's dragging.
That's pretty cool. Like, I don't see a lot of like girls.
So I wonder if maybe there's something you can do with the cup arm during this part. So you have
hat, and that's pretty cool.
So he's like, and that's that, and then when he's doing, and that's pretty cool. Maybe you could just be a little, that's pretty cool moment of just like a gesture with it, just like a throwaway thing, and that's pretty cool. Like I don't see a lot of, and then he like leads in with it again. Just so we're not always doing this, this, and this. I know you do end up leading with it for this next bit here. But if he's like, I don't see a lot of like girls. Maybe if you just have a slight gesture. I don't see a lot of like girls. And then that can tie in with, I mean, we're a bit ahead of ourselves here. It's always nice when you can get this contrappasto. Contrappasto is the thing where you have the shoulder line, the hip line, and the head line all going in opposite directions. There you go, I did it the wrong way. So when you do that gesture, you're doing that head. When you do this slight, like I don't see a lot of like, you're also leaning the head, tilting the head into the shoulder, which is raising because you're doing this kind of gesture. I don't see a lot of like, you maybe not seeing my arm clear enough. I don't see a lot of like girls, you know, just like this nice thing. Cool. Now we'll go from front to back because there's the smaller, pickier notes. Cool. Really tiny picky note is when you do this compression here. I feel like that cheek tucking in at the back, if I zoom in, you'll be able to see it clearer. This cheek line at the back tucks backwards and in after the corner change. It feels a bit delayed. You have the corner change, then you have the cheek change. So it just feels a bit disconnected. It's like two beats for that expression change, where it could just, that pose to pose move could just be one pose to pose move. It could just be just a, and maybe you could do even like an overshoot of it, like a, so I'm inhaling, I'm going slight overshoot, settle back. I think that gives it like a clearer moment there. Cool. And then the bigger thing with this start and in general, which is going to be more when you get into the polished stages, is I feel like the squash and stretch of the face can be pushed to help exaggerate certain things. So when I flick between these moments, you can see I'm connecting the cheeks. When the jaw comes up and the mouth compresses, we also slightly puffing the cheeks out, and the nose is raising slightly and widening slightly. So we get this entire mass. When I flick between these parts, you'll see like a neutral, squash, and a stretch pose. And you can do this in lots of places throughout the shot. Usually rigs have a squash and stretch controller, like a jaw controller, which you pull it and it stretches the whole lower face, and that'll give you a bunch of it, and then you can connect extra bits on top. I saw in this rig, it just has like a bottom half wire. So maybe there's some stuff we can do. I'm going to have a look at that in a minute. I'll show you some copy paste stuff, maybe some layered workflow stuff. Again, not animation layers, just layered. Cool. This arrow was just to talk about that step forward, which we already talked about. Cool. So let's talk about the next note I had. Is there something here, or is that just a mistake? That might be a mistake.
The hat, and that's pretty cool.
I think this is actually...
That's pretty cool.
So this moment here, I think maybe I accidentally erased it, but I know what I was talking about. I think in general, you're moving your outer brows just as much as your inner brows, when in reality, these actually move less than the inner brows. So you have the inner brows do a little bit more than the outer brows are doing. The outer brows can go down, but the middle has a lot wider range of motion than the outside brows. So I feel like for this down in particular, where is it? This down in particular, let's delete this frame. This down in particular, the outers are actually moving more than the inners, and that feels a bit strange. So it's just trying to get that nice and connected, where you have those inners moving a bit more than those outers. Oftentimes, maybe you're leading like half a frame, like a tiny bit. The inners can be leading. You don't want it to feel too wishy-washy, where you have this snaky feel. It wants to feel connected, but it's just a subtle difference. It's going to make that connected, and that's something to take into consideration for like the whole shot, basically. Cool. Yeah. So I think here, when he's doing this convincing thing, I think just for contrast sake, we can compress the whole eye mask a little bit more. When I talk about the eye mask, I'm talking about if you imagine this guy is like an Incredible, and he has this mask on around this area, which includes like the upper cheek flesh as well, and sometimes a little bit of the nose. So you have like this whole compression. And then here when you do, okay, we'll talk about the eye mask quickly. When you do don't, like I don't, maybe when you do I don't, you can go wider on the eye mask. So again, if we were to draw that eye mask, it would be slightly wider, taller. And this slightly obeys squash and stretch as well, where the taller something is, the thinner it has to be to maintain volume, but we can cheat it a little bit. And then the same is the opposite is true. When the fatter it is, the wider it has to be. It's just a bouncing ball. Let's flick between these two. So you can see like we have a more compressed eye mask, we have a more open eye mask for that accent. So I just think those two moments can be pushed just for a little bit more contrast and liveliness in the eye mask region for this shot. Cool. This bit here, there's a few places where the mouth corners get stuck. Here is one of them. I feel like the mouth corners could continue and then come back in. Like these little lines I've drawn, hopefully are a good indication of the kind of range of motion I'm talking about. Right now, those corners get stuck on, they open quite wide, pop open on this frame, and then nothing changes on this frame. So it's just softening little bits like that. Like it's nice to have sharp timing, but if something gets 100% stuck, it can feel a little bit broken and unorganic. So just look out for that kind of stuff. Talk about that. Here I feel like there's not much asymmetry in the eye mask, and this pupil in particular is getting quite buried. So I think we can just open up this open side and this closed side a little bit more. You'll often see people in animation circles talking about the shark mouth, which is like the compressed side and the open side. I often like to think of it as like, this is a compressed side, it's getting squeezed in, and this is an open side, it's getting opened up, right? So this is the face, right? So if I was to exaggerate it, it would be, you know, your eye, your other eye, this one's getting squished, your brows in here, and then your brows open. So it's a very exaggerated asymmetrical thing, and you can also push like, say a smile or something, where it's getting sucked up on this side, it's getting more compressed on this side, right? Everything is getting more compressed or more open. So it's just like this, but like a tiny amount, you know, it's just adding a little bit of asymmetry. I feel like in here it's just feeling a bit symmetrical. So it's just helping with that a little bit. And then here, the lip shape change here on this frame is really large, but then it like hits and sticks on that frame. So you just soften it a little bit. So this frame is like 80% of the way to where it is right now. The lips mostly in translate Y, the up and down of those lips. And then on this frame, it can kind of continue in that direction and be softer. Right now, it just kind of hits and sticks a little bit. Cool. That was my main notes for you. Obviously little polished things and that kind of stuff, but a lot of it's going to be this face connectivity thing. So what I wanted to do with the rest of our time here is just quickly jump into the myosin and see if there's anything we can do. What's that? Rotate Z? Probably rotate because it's so much bigger than the translate values. So something I will often do when I get to kind of polish, like clean up the lip sync notes I had first before you do any of this. Let's turn on this so I can see what the camera edge is, just because that's the way I like to work. And I also like to just lower this, and then make sure this is in horizontal. Just so, basically, a quick lesson. This took me a while to learn in my random thing. This fill gate resolution is if this is on fill, there will be no edge. If this is on vertical, it's going to try and match the vertical edge of it with the amount of gap you've got here. So I like to have horizontal for this setup. So the bigger this number is, the bigger the horizontal gap will be. So the wider I make, you see it won't change. The length, the gap, very tiny gap here won't change. If I make that bigger, we have like a really big horizontal gap here. And if I make it larger, you'll see that gap is actually maintained. So that's what that horizontal thing does. Certain monitors you might want vertical, but for me, horizontal. I have like an ultra wide monitor, so horizontal is very good for it. So I just make it like a tiny bit different, just so that I can see like a tiny bit of edge, so I know where the edge of the camera is at all times. Random tangent, but it's something it took me a long time. When I learned it, I was like, oh, that's why it's fucking always really annoying and not in the right place. Anyway, let's talk about phase connectivity. I did check out this rig, and annoyingly, you might have to like use some sticky mods or something. Wait, what are these? Because this septum, this middle part, doesn't move at all. Like it's stuck there, the skinning of it. Which means if I was to add animation to this, it would be weird because this wouldn't move. And I don't really see any more controls for it. I'll just double check that there isn't like any switches. I don't see any switches. Sometimes there's randomly switches in the body control. Sometimes there's randomly switches in the head control. Depends on the rig. Here, I don't really see anything extra. So you might have to do it with sticky mods, which is a whole thing in itself. I mean, maybe we could try it. So to use, I can link you this tool. If you don't have it, it's going to be Josh Sobel's sticky mod tool. Sticky mods are just clusters, which is like a Maya deformer, but like packaged in a way that makes it easier for animators to use. So let's open it up. I haven't been using my actual home version of Maya much lately. My work version of Maya has a completely different shelf to this, so everything's in different places. Here you go. So sticky mod is this tool. What you do is you select a vert, create a sticky mod. I'm going to make it as a handle because it's easier to select. Well, I'm going to make it as a nerves curve because I can hide it with my hotkey. So then if I do the sticky mod, Bosh, it's going to make this little piece of geos. This is like the kind of thing I'll add to let's just, it's going to follow that vert for the whole animation. So I'm just loading my animbot with a hotkey. Should take a second. There you go. So I'm going to add this to like a selection set. So we'll just call this like sticky one or something. We'll just give it random color. So this guy is not affecting much when you bring it in. So I'm going to up the radius, fall off radius here. And I wanted it to affect like the nostril stuff. So maybe if I use these two in combination now, I'm just going to do a slightly offset from each other. Might have to do a bit of fiddling. It's fine. Or we can maybe up this. So maybe this is fine. So I've created a controller for myself just to give a bit of connectivity. It's affecting that lip slightly, which I don't want it to do. So maybe I'll tone it down a little bit. Let's just pull it down a bunch, and then I'll use control and middle mouse just to see how much I'm affecting that stuff. And then let's zero this out. So it's actually on X translate. Cool, that's fine for now. If I wanted to, I could have made that sticky higher. I could even make a second sticky. We can be fighting the rig forever and just making stuff. But what I wanted to do was just I'll show you another trick I like, which is I'll just take a vert in here. Wait, do I need a vert for this or do you need edges? The tool I'm going to be using is this guy. I'll link you to this as well. It's called like locator. It's just going to put a locator on something. So I'm just going to take a vert that I want to take the information from. So I'm just going to take this vert and I'm going to, on this guy, I'm going to range on all keys this guy, and that should make a locator on all of those, and it should be in world space. Oh, actually, I missed a step. The fact that this is in world space is not what we actually want. But effectively what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and take the information from this top lip and put it on the nose so I can connect those two, and then I can play with the curve. I'm just like doing a cheat to get it for free really quickly. So that actually just didn't do what I wanted at all. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, so this one's following in world space. But we don't want it to follow in world space because then if we copy that information onto the thing, it's in world space and not in head space. To get it in head space, we need the head to not be moving for the whole animation. So to do that, I'm going to select the head. I'm just going to like grab all the channels and mute them so it's not doing anything. If I do mute all, so now if I scrub, the head is not, okay, the head is connected to everything. Shit, okay, that's one more step. One more step that's needed is, this is a fiddly process. I mean, different people do this different ways. The one reason I'm doing it this way is because oftentimes multiple controls can affect this gap between the nose and the lip. Some people might copy like the jaw and put the jaw onto the nose up and down, which can work, but this is like getting it a bit more precise. But it's worth learning, so I'm going to show you. I haven't been doing this at work lately because this tool doesn't work at work, annoyingly, and it would be way more manual to do. But let's figure it out. I'll do it live. We want the head in global space. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy, this is going to be, I'm going to copy the key timings. This will make sense in a minute why I'm doing that. I'm then going to put this in world space with a temp controller. So I'll make like head, temp, right? Bosh. That's going to, I hope I didn't have bake on. I think I had bake keys on. Hopefully I did. This is going to put the head in world space for the whole thing. So now this head controller that we have here, if I mute this, then it's not going to move at all, which is what I actually wanted. So this is going to look fucked up completely. Don't worry about it. We're on frame 73. I need to remember that. Looks like it's frozen my Maya. Classic. But we're going to learn something. It might take a minute because I'm doing it live. Come on, Maya. I'll pause the recording and hopefully Maya will come back. Okay, we're so back. Maya crashed. Classic. I just remembered an even easier way of doing this thing that I'm doing. So I haven't been doing it at work lately. As I say, this tool wasn't working. But I'm going to show you anyway because I think it's really useful. I'm going to load up Animbot. 1 second. So we have the sticky still. We just don't have the locator. That's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the first frame of the animation. I'm going to take that head control. Whoops. Take that head control. I'm just going to copy its world space real quick. And the easiest way to just keep our animation, but keep it still for a second is actually going to be, I'm just going to take a locator and paste it to that world space location. So we just copy the world space location, create a locator, paste the world space location. So now the locator is here. Make it bigger, you'll see it. So that's in the head pivot position. So now I'm going to make the locator the parent of the head so the head doesn't move, just so that we have the head in a still position. It's going to look funky. So if I do this, now if I scrub, the head's going to be stuck in position for the whole thing. But this allows us to get some local information about what the face geo is doing, what the face controller is moving around the face geo. So the reason I want that, and I'll show you quickly, is if I select a vert and then I use that tool, I'll email you all of this stuff so you can use whatever you want. I'm just going to take one from around the base of the lip. I'm going to use my locator tool right here. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to go to on every frame range, every frame. Here you go. So it's hopefully going to make a locator on every single frame. And then because that head is locked in space, it's only going to move what the face controllers is moving it. So I'm going to get free face connectivity by copying that controller, right? So if I do then look at this locator that it's just created. So if I look at if I go to my parent axes, I can see, so this is in world space. So the Y, I probably just want to take the Y. So this is what's moving for that whole thing. So now if I copy this, can do edit copy, and I go to my nose sticky right here. Looks like that's affecting a little bit too much. So let's just turn it down a little bit. And now I'm going to go to, looks like it's X on this. Let's just set a key at the start on everything. If we go to the X on here and paste it, it's probably going to go mental, but let's have a look. Okay, it's going in the opposite direction, it seems. Let's double check. Yeah, so when that's going down, that's going up. So I'm just going to flip this curve. You can type in times equals -1. I actually have a hotkey, which is doing an animbot function. I'll show you quickly what it is for flipping curves. So the hotkey is, if you go to tween slider, or is it, I think it might be the green slider, key slider. The hotkey I have is, I have a lot. But the one I'm talking about is this. It's scale to neighbor less -100%. So what this is doing is just going to flip everything minus 100% over the leftmost key. So in this case, it's over 0, but it could be over. You can select it for certain frame ranges. You can select it for whatever. I use it for a bunch of stuff. So now this is going to be way too much. But you'll see that when that lip moves forward and down, the nose is coming with it a little bit. So we get a little bit of free connectivity. So we're just going to scale this way down. And also, let's look at this. So the first frame should probably be a little bit lower. Just because that mouth is open, or maybe a tiny bit. And then what we're going to do is I'm just going to scale this to default, like 50%, like maybe 3 times, and just see how much this is. So now we're getting this little bit of free connectivity, right? Where the nose is following slightly. So here it might be. There's certain points where you might want to exaggerate things or push things and kind of baby this curve. So you can go through this whole thing. Sometimes it can get a bit messy in WOD space. So I might clean up some of these curves. Like some of this jitter we might not want this much jitter. A quick and easy way of doing that is just by doing shift on the screen slider and using the smooth function. I'm just going to smooth out a little bit. Some of these bumps are just going to get smoothed out a little bit. I could still go in and clean stuff up, if I wanted to. I would probably would do this normally. So let's just delete some of this noise just to clean it up. But now if I go to the head in the outliner and I delete that parent that we had, let's grab that in here. So we don't need this parent anymore. Oh. It's this parent. Bosh, delete that. Okay, fuck the head up somehow. That's not good. Maybe I should have copied the head board space before I did any of this stuff, but usually this works pretty well, so it's annoying. Let's just delete the locator. Okay, why does that change the head rotation? How weird. Actually looks correct for a bunch of this, but just not the very start, which is really strange. Usually this would work pretty well. Maybe you've got an anim layer that's doing something. Is that affecting the head? Waste FK. No, it's just something else. It's not the head. So worst case scenario, I could reopen the scene in a different Maya and copy the head animation and it would be the exact same, but I'm just going to be lazy. You can do that in your scene. I just wanted to quickly show you this trick. So for now, I can just fix this animation on an animation layer. It's going to be dirty, but let's just pose it like here. It's probably not exactly the correct pose. It's probably a little bit more looking up, wasn't it? I can't remember. Something like this. And then maybe over this move, we'll zero that out because it looked like it kind of got back to, nope, it didn't get back to normal, but maybe we could zero out and then scale it back a little bit. This is me really jankily trying to fix the mess I've made. Just because I wanted to quickly show you this nose thing. Usually it's not this complex, trust me. Okay, this completely messed up the head animation. I'm really not sure why. So yeah, I would just make sure you copy the world space of the head before you do any of this and you can paste the head back on. But the point was, you now see there's a little bit of connectivity between that nostril stuff. So in some of these places it can be pushed, and I could have used more axes than just the Y. So maybe around some of this stuff, I want it to actually be a bit bigger in its changes. Let's just exaggerate it and see what happens. Blend that. Bosh. So then I've got that nose control and I can push it around a little bit more. But hopefully you can see that we've got a little bit for free of connectivity. Other things I would connect, again, I would hopefully not mess this head up. You can take like the mouth corners, or you could even take like the geo near the mouth corner if you have multiple things affecting where that's moving. But you could take like the side to side of it and the up and down of it. You could do them one at a time to make sure that they actually work. And put those on the nostrils. So you put the side to side on here. It's going to be fucked up. Ugh. Let's do that. And then let's really try and match similar to the kind of range that you had before. Let's just do that around there and make sure that the in and outs are doing the in and outs. So when that goes narrow in there, is that going narrower? It is. So then you get some for free little nose connectivity. Like you can get this stuff for a subtle amount. Sorry, like I messed your head animation up. You'll you can do some troubleshooting and get that working properly. I just think you need to copy the world space, as I keep saying. But then you can play around with the ranges that these are going and get this kind of nice and connected and do this for both nostrils. And so this is probably too small in some areas, could be bigger. Yeah, I can get it a little bit bigger probably throughout. Just a little bit of connectivity stuff, you see. Anyway, the head angle messed it up and is now making me regret my decision. But hopefully the lesson is still there, that we can really take some nice piece of information. Maybe some of this stuff like here, that sticky is moving a bit too much of like the nostril area, but not like the overall mass of the nose. So I think if you were to do this, maybe you put the sticky a bit higher. Maybe you put the sticky on, you know, one of these verts. And then when you do the scaling up, it's going to affect like the whole nose instead of just pulling kind of this bottom half section. But hopefully kind of that lesson is still there of what I'm trying to get out of using this technique. And it's just to keep that stuff fleshy and connected. So, you know, this point is being stretched by these controls. I'm taking the information from that point and I'm putting it on this. Maybe you can then scale it down. You can offset slightly sometimes, and you can just get nice kind of face connectivity overall. And you also have this controller. Does this have a scale on it? This does have a scale, but it moves the mouth controllers in a weird way, so I probably wouldn't use that. You could maybe use like the rotate on this, and you could take like the rotate on your jaw and put the rotate from your jaw on the controller here, bosh. And then it's going to be way too much, but just make sure that the opens are actually opening, which they are. And then I can really like scale this down. Bosh, bosh. Maybe smooth it a little bit. Scale it down. And sometimes you can offset this. So maybe I don't want to offset a whole frame because that's too much, but maybe if I do like plus equals 0.3 or something, I don't mind it being on a subframe, but just like slightly offset can sometimes give you nice results. So if we look at like, how's this feeling? Let's go to a moment where the jaw changes quite a lot, which means this is going to be changing quite a lot. So if we look at how much that's changing, it's subtle. We can maybe scale it up a little bit just to see it. But the subtle is kind of what you want anyway. It's just a little bit of connectivity to get that whole lower face connected. So when the jaw goes, it moves that whole lower face just a little bit. Nice. So it's just nice kind of layering in connectivity throughout the face. I like to take, the squash stuff, the corners onto the nose, the corners onto the cheeks as well. So that when that corner moves, it affects some of this geo around here. This can be slightly offset as well. And you can kind of just take pieces of information from different parts, put them onto different pieces to give you like a first pass. Then you can go in and clean up some of that stuff if you want to really tighten up that spacing and make it nice and clean and that kind of stuff. So hopefully that's some stuff to think about. Sadly, my demo didn't work quite as well as I hoped because some annoying thing happened with the head. Really don't know why the animation changed, but hopefully the lesson is still there, even though in my practical example it wasn't as clear as I quite hoped. But I can send you a link to the different scripts I used, the sticky mod and the locator script. So cool. If you have any follow-up questions, let me know, and hopefully it was useful for you. Thank you very much.